Thank you very much. It is a very great privilege to be with you today at this important conference on human rights in North Korea. 3 days after we marked the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and indeed the 70th anniversary of the Genocide Convention as well, documents that are every bit as relevant and much needed in our world today as they were 70 years ago. I congratulate the organizers and everybody involved in this important occasion, and I apologize that there are two things that I cannot do as well as Greg Scarlatio. The first is that I'm not able to address you in Korean, so I have to speak in English, and the second is that I may be a little bit longer and not quite as concise as Greg Scarlatio.
이 중요한 행사에 관련된 모든 분들께 축하를 드립니다. 그리고 제가 두 가지를 잘 못하는 것이 있는데, 한 가지는 한국말을 못한다는 것이고, 또 하나는 그레그 스칼라트 사무총장처럼 짧게 하지 못한다는 것입니다. 양해 부탁드립니다.
But I cannot think of a better topic to focus our attention on throughout this week than the human rights crisis in North Korea, a country which the United Nations itself has described as, quote, in a category of its own in terms of human rights, ruled by a regime that violates and denies to its people every single one of the rights set out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is especially important to do so at a time when the relationship between North and South Korea and between North Korea and the United States appear, at least on the surface, to be changing, and at a time when perhaps there may be some small superficial signs of an opening in North Korea. It is essential to remember that a meaningful dialogue with North Korea and a genuine peace on the Korean Peninsula can only be achieved if the appalling human rights violations which the people of North Korea endure are addressed as part of that engagement. The human dignity and the basic rights of the North Korean people must be at the center of any meaningful path to peace. We have been documenting the human rights crisis in North Korea for almost 2 decades. Our report, North Korea, A Case to Answer, A Call to Act, published 11 years ago, was one of the first reports to conclude that the human rights situation in North Korea amounts to crimes against humanity, and we were one of the first to call for a UN Commission of Inquiry in 2007. In 2011, we co-founded the International Coalition to Stop Crimes Against Humanity in North Korea, to campaign specifically for the establishment of a UN COI. Let us remember that the regime in North Korea keeps at least 100,000, perhaps as many as 200,000 of its own citizens in prison camps, subjected to the most cruel forms of torture. The Songbun system decides the fate of every North Korean and divides people at birth into 3 classes, core, wavering, and hostile, based on family background and history. Similarly, the guilt by association and punishment up to 3 generations are other policies designed to drive fear into the minds of North Koreans. The UN Commission of Inquiry concluded that the North Korean regime is committing crimes against humanity. It said that the gravity, scale, and nature of the violations reveal a state that does not have any parallel in the contemporary world, and it said that these are crimes against humanity in international law, which clearly merit a criminal investigation. Now, I know that to remind people of this is not popular in certain quarters at this time, as we saw very vividly at the beginning of this meeting. But by reminding us of the Commission of Inquiry's findings, I am not in any way opposing engagement, dialogue, or peace building. On the contrary, I support in principle the search for peace on the Korean Peninsula and I have advocated critical engagement. The question for me is not whether one should seek opportunities to engage or pursue peace with Kim Jong-un's regime. The question is how and about what. A genuine peace on the Korean Peninsula is not possible when crimes against humanity continue. Human rights and denuclearization should both be equal priorities, for as long as anyone in North Korea is jailed, tortured, or executed simply for holding a belief that is different from Kim Jong-un's, there cannot be peace on the peninsula. As I draw towards a conclusion, we should note that the summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un took place on the 31st anniversary of President Ronald Reagan's famous speech at the Berlin Wall, in which he urged the then Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall and open this gate. President Reagan said, "Freedom and security go together. The advance of human liberty can only strengthen the cause of world peace." So our ongoing message to Kim Jong-un should echo President Reagan's passionate defense of freedom and its link to security by paraphrasing the Berlin Wall speech with these words: "Mr. Kim, if you seek peace, come to the gates of the prison camps. Mr. Kim, open the gates of the prison camps. Mr. Kim, tear down the walls of the prison camps." Only when Kim Jong-un takes clear steps towards basic freedoms for his people will we know that he is serious. And until then, we must continue our efforts, adapt our strategies, and work to advance the movement for human rights in the world's most closed and most oppressed country. For only when the human dignity and rights of the people of North Korea are upheld, injustice confronted, and impunity ended, can peace on this peninsula prevail. I conclude with a simple proposal. We should urge Kim Jong-un to invite into North Korea with unhindered and unrestricted access people like the UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in North Korea, the UN Special Rapporteur for Freedom of Religion or Belief, the EU Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief, the US Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, and other international human rights mechanisms and human rights NGOs. And, if I may be so bold as to make a proposal to the South Korean government, South Korea should appoint a new ambassador for international human rights to build on the excellent work of Jong-hoon Lee. As a friend of the Korean people, I believe that we should seize the moment for peace, but at the same time be mindful that, as I've said several times, real peace is impossible unless the human rights and dignity of the North Korean people are respected, crimes against humanity ended, and accountability established. That is the way to end crimes against humanity and secure true freedom and peace for all Korean people, and that must remain the goal for which we work. 감사합니다.